What is up? What is up? What is up, everybody? This is your boy Is Nefarious here, and I am here with another edition of your favorite series. Here we go, following the Pittsburgh Steelers of the Premier Madden League, and we are heading into Season 2. We are hyped. The preseason wrapped up. We are in the bye week right before regular season week 1. We got a lot of position battles to talk about. We got a lot of roster moves to talk about, and we got a big news type of big splash coming for you later on in the show. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and see how the preseason turned out. Alright, so first things first, in the preseason we did go 1-2. We lost 2 games, one to the football team, one to the Rams. We're going to see the highlights of the football team, the Rams, and the Panthers. The Panthers game we actually won, and we blew off the Panthers. But we had position battles to deal with throughout that, so we were paying close attention to each position battle. We had one with Jared Goff and JT Daniels, the rookie we picked up. We had one at wide receiver, not for a number 1 wide receiver, but basically for that number 2, and also to see who gets cut from the wide receiver core. We also had a tight end battle between Pat Freiermuth and the newly drafted rookie Sam Laporte. We also had a position battle in the defensive tackle spot with the newcomer, number 4 overall pick, Jordan Davis, and our newly signed free agent and still really good, Linval Joseph. Then we also had a position battle for the backup left outside linebacker for TJ Watt's second-hand man. We had Jeremiah Moon going up against Cameron Good and Ulysses Gilbert. We also had a middle linebacker battle for the MLB 2 that was left vacant by Joe Schobert. We had a cornerback battle to see who would be the number 2 cornerback in the system between Damon Arnett and the newly drafted 13th overall pick, Ahmad Gardner. Also, Bradley Roby was in there for that battle. Other than that, those were the main battles, some roster battles and stuff like that. Let's start with the QB battle. So, just a few points on both guys, and then we'll announce later on in the video who won that battle. Jared Goff is a more well-rounded, from watching him play, from playing with him. He's a more well-rounded quarterback. Doesn't really have that arm strength to fit it in tight windows like JT Daniels does. But he does show more poise in the pocket. He has a better ball as far as a spiral and stuff like that. He also has a little bit better accuracy, and he's just more polished than JT Daniels. Now, on the flip side with JT Daniels, that man has a cannon of an arm. Could fit the ball into some tight windows. You'll see it in highlights. I mean, we've had the good and the bad with both. Jared Goff, under pressure, had some turnovers as well. Didn't make the greatest reads the whole time. JT Daniels, the same issue. Under pressure, didn't make some great reads when he was under pressure. But some of the throws JT Daniels made in the preseason were legit throws, tight windows, just something that Jared Goff really can't do because JT Daniels' arm's just a little bit better than Jared Goff's. Now, that being said, JT Daniels does have his deficiencies. He doesn't throw an accurate ball. It's not really a tight spiral coming out. He has lack of awareness in the pocket. So, all that stuff we have to take into consideration when making our decision. But moving on from that, the wide receiver battle, George Pickens was great in this preseason. So was Gary Jennings, who we brought in, and so was Vincent Smith. They all played their role. Vincent Smith was on the kick return, so he showed some value there. Gary Jennings had a great preseason, and George Pickens had a phenomenal preseason as well as a draft pick. So that's a tough decision. Jamison Crowder didn't really show up, and Steven Sims didn't really show up. Moving on to the tight end, we have Pat Freiermuth versus Sam Laporte. Both guys are pretty much kind of the same. Laporte's a young kid coming in, has great run blocking. Definitely showed better run blocking and blocking skills than Fairmuth. But Fairmuth is a better route runner, in my opinion, than Laporte. Laporte is more of a blocking specialist, and I think we could develop him to have some receiving tendencies. Right now, Gronk's the number one. We do plan on running two tight end sets, so we'll see who we lean forward. Do we want more blocking? Do we want more route running and catching ability? It's going to be a call there on what we want more. As far as the defensive tackle, Jordan Davis, young, phenomenal talent, very, very, very strong in the middle. But the same goes for Linval Joseph. They're pretty much the same player. Just Jordan Davis has some more size to him. Could plug up the middle a little bit more, but they both have phenomenal strength. Linval Joseph's just a little more athletic, a little more polished. Has a better pass rush. But Jordan Davis did show that he was better in run fits and plugging his gap and stuff like that. So it just goes on which one we want to weigh towards more, the run, or do we want to weigh towards the pass rush. So we'll make a decision there. Left outside linebacker, we had Cameron Good, who's a draft pick of ours, Jeremiah Moon, Jermaine Moon. No, it's Jeremiah. It's something Moon. But I think it's Jeremiah out of Florida. So he was really good for us. I think he might have got a sack or two, or got some pressures. We had Ulysses Gilbert, who was okay. Didn't really see the field much. We were trying to see the rookies. He has his position on the team. I mean, he's not going to get moved. He's always going to be there because he has that speed. He has the contain ability that we want when we play Lamar Jackson. So he will have his spot always. When it comes to Cameron Good and Jeremiah Moon, it was basically to see, they're both pass rushers. They both play the same style. It was basically to see who showed more potential moving forward. There wasn't much to talk about on either side. It's just really going to be who we like, their intangibles, stuff like that, who we think is going to be a better fit for us. So that's going to be the decision there. Middle linebacker, we had Devin Bush, number one. First and foremost, Devin Bush is going to be number one. Then we have Jermaine. Is it Jermaine Carter? I gotta pull up the name. I think it's Jermaine Carter. So it's Jermaine Carter Jr. We brought him in from free agency. We also brought in Buddy Johnson, and we drafted Peyton Willis, who could move to the middle. He was drafted as a left outside linebacker, but in a 3-4, he's going to play more of that middle linebacker. Peyton Willis was phenomenal this whole preseason. So was Jermaine Carter. Jermaine Carter forced a fumble, was laying the boom on anybody that came across the middle. So he was phenomenal. The one guy that was probably on the bottom end was Buddy Johnson. Not really seen. I think he did have one interception. So he made a play here and there. But it's going to be a tough call as far as Jermaine Carter and Peyton Willis. I think those two are two guys that could end up in that second slot. So we'll see based on stats and stuff like that. But just based on, off the top of my head, you'll see some of the highlights. You see number 5, Peyton Willis, getting interceptions if you haven't already. So he was definitely a big component of the defense during the preseason. Jermaine Carter, also, like I said, had a forced fumble. Buddy Johnson had an interception. So either three could really jump into that MLB 2. We got youth with Peyton Willis. Peyton Wilson. If I said Willis the whole time, I'm an idiot. But Peyton Wilson. We got Buddy Johnson, who's young, and then Jermaine Carter is kind of that veteran presence in a way. He's not really that old, but he's still, of age and a little more seasoned than those two guys. When it comes to the cornerback situation, like I said, we had Amon Garner and Damon Arnett really fighting for that cornerback 2 in a base set. Obviously, when it's a nickel set, we're probably going to have all three out there. But base, we had to really make a decision between Damon Arnett and Amon Gunner. Now, Damon Arnett, if you don't know, we came over from a trade last season from the Raiders. We sent Juju over, got Damon Arnett, who's been really good for us, showed great potential, really played well in our secondary and our system. So he already has a staple into this defense. Amon Garner comes in, 13th overall pick in the draft, showed great potential throughout the preseason, made plays all over the field. Even Damon Arnett made his own plays. So it's going to be a really tough call with all these position battles. It's going to be a tough call at cornerback. It's going to be a tough call at quarterback. It's going to be a tough call at wide receiver. I mean, besides running back, the defensive ends where we have Tua and Hayward, the safeties where we have Edmonds and Minka, our wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, like, it's going to be a tough call with all of these position battles because we could go either way, but it's basically going to be based on how they performed in the preseason. What we feel is better for the team moving forward. We got to focus on youth. We got to make sure we're focused on, putting the people in the right position to succeed. We got to focus on all of that when we're putting this together. We did have some close roster cuts that we had to go through. We dropped Joe Milton for cap reasons. We also dropped Jamison Crowder. We dropped a few people. We dropped a backup corner. We also dropped, trying to think of who else we dropped. I think we dropped another wide receiver. Steven Sims. We dropped Steven Sims. We had to make a bunch of roster moves, but that has more to do with the trade we made and the big news that we have. So without further ado, let's jump into what we're going to do as far as the position battles, and let's also take a look at how the trades, what trade worked out and what we got back in a blockbuster trade. So let's jump into it right now and take a look. Alright, so here we are with quarterback. Who will be the 2022 Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback? It's a tough call. Jared Goff had a slow start, but had a really strong game in the last week. Really eye-opening game. When it comes to JT Daniels, shows great promise, shows a great arm. Definitely a little scary. He has that throw power, but he's a little wild with it. So he's a little scary. For our offense and what we want to be in 2022, the starting quarterback is going to be Jared Goff. So Jared Goff will take over the starting quarterback role for us in 2022, but it's not a sealed deal. And what I mean by that is it could very easily switch to JT Daniels if Jared Goff doesn't perform up to snub come the regular season. So even though Jared Goff is a starter, he will be watched closely, and JT Daniels could replace him at any moment. So Jared Goff will be our starter. Now let's move over to wide receiver and take a look at what we're doing there. All right, so wide receiver, we have Chase Claypool, who's been our number 1, but I felt like that's not enough. Just Chase Claypool is not enough. We moved Deontay Johnson for a pick. We've made moves. We've lost James Washington. We've traded Juju. Chase Claypool is not enough. So what do? We go out and we trade for a big name. So with a future first round pick and a current second round pick, we send that to Dallas for Amari Cooper. So Amari Cooper will jump in and take over that wide receiver 1 spot, being that true number 1 for Jared Goff. There's no excuse for Jared Goff now. He has a true number 1, and he also has Claypool, who had a phenomenal season last season. So he technically, in my opinion, has two number 1s in both. You got a big body wide receiver. You got a smaller, shiftier wide receiver that could create separation. You got a guy that could go up and get the ball. You got a guy that could create separation with his route running. So there's no excuse. We have a true number 1. But let's talk about the other wide receiver battle. How will it map out behind those two? Now, we run a lot of 21 and 12 personnel. So usually there's 2 wide receivers. But there is a high chance that we have another wide receiver on the field. Who is that going to be? So taking a look at the preseason, it could be Gary Jennings, George Pickens. Not so much Vincent Smith. He had an okay preseason, kind of did enough to stay on the team, but it's probably going to be Gary Jennings or George Pickens. Now, they're two different guys. Gary Jennings is more of a Amari Cooper. George Pickens is more of a Chase Claypool. We're going to go with George Pickens just because he has the youth on his side and having that big body wide receiver that could step in. Then again, it could be, if Amari Cooper's a little tired, we put in Gary Jennings instead of George Pickens. If Chase Claypool's a little tired, we put in George Pickens there instead of Gary Jennings. It could be that type of situation. But that number 3 slot is going to go to George Pickens. He's going to take over that number 3 slot. And Amari Cooper is going to be our starting wide receiver in the slot. So when he kicks inside, George Pickens will come on the field and play outside. He's going to play outside the numbers. Gary Jennings will be right behind George Pickens. And then we'll round it off with Vincent Smith. Now let's jump over to our defensive tackles to see who won that battle. Actually, before we jump over to the defensive tackle, I forgot about the tight end battle we had. How could I forget about the tight end battle? We had Pat Freiermuth versus Sam Laporte. So who is going to be that number 2 tight end? Like I said, we run a lot of 12 personnel. We run a lot of 21 personnel. We even run around some 22. So who's going to be that second tight end that comes onto the field? We're going to lean more towards the run blocking because we are a run-first team. So we're going to go with Sam Laporte. And then we're going to put our boy Pat Freiermuth as the 3rd slot behind him. Now, this is kind of the same situation with Jared Goff. Maybe we swap those two at some point if it's going south and we need a little more receiving from that position. But right now, we're going to go for the run block and let let Rob Gronkowski be that receiver for us. Now let's move over to defensive tackle and see how that position battle came out. So just taking a look at some of the stats, it's hard to tell. This is a tough position to call. Do we want to go with more experience with Linval Joseph? We liked what we saw in the preseason. Do we want to go with the youth and the size of Jordan Davis? It's basically going to be a call about youth on this one. It's not so much going to be about what we could get. I think we could fill this hole while having Cameron Hayward and Stephon Tua on the edges and having Devin Bush in the middle. I think this is a hole that we could afford. So even if Jordan Davis isn't the right choice right now, because he is a little young and still has time to, catch up compared to Linval Joseph, we're still going to rock with Jordan Davis just because we like the potential there. So Jordan Davis, the number 4 overall pick, is going to get a starting opportunity right out the gate. Hopefully it pans out. Hopefully he shows his worth being that high draft pick. Now moving on, let's take a look at the left outside linebacker and see who we removed, who is going to be that number 2 behind TJ Watt, and what we're doing there. Alright, so here we are taking a look at the left outside linebacker. Behind TJ Watt, he's our starter. He's signed for multiple years. Behind TJ Watt, we are actually going to go with Jeremiah Moon as the number 2. And then we're going to do Ulysses Gilbert as that number 3. He's pretty much, Gilbert's going to pretty much be a specialist. He's not really a pass rusher. He's more there when we have to play Lamar. We want him on contains. Jeremiah brings a power rush type of style to that outside linebacker spot. He is not the best in zone coverage. He's not as fast as Gilbert, but I feel like he is a better pass rusher as a whole. He will be able to drop into coverage for us occasionally. He is 6'5". He's a big boy, 6'5", 262. So we like his size on the edge. I think he could set the edge a little bit better than Gilbert can. So that's a lot to do with why we went with what we went with, especially as a 3-4 defense. Now the middle linebacker, we have a decision here. Who's going to be that number 2 middle linebacker in our 3-4 defense? Our starter is going to be Jermaine Carter as of right now. It definitely could switch to Peyton Wilson. And then number 3 is going to be Buddy Johnson. So Jermaine Carter is going to take over that number 2. We already got youth with Devin Bush. Even though Peyton Wilson had a really good camp, a really good preseason, We do want to put Jermaine Carter in that position, but it could change as soon as week 2. Depending on how we play, it could be a 50-50 type of thing with Wilson and Jermaine Carter. I lean towards Jermaine Carter because he sets a presence in the middle of the defense a little bit better than Peyton Wilson does. So that's gonna be our decision there. Buddy Johnson's obviously lost his chance to take that MLB 2 spot away. After being behind Joe Schobert all of last season, he wasn't able to perform up to par to steal that MLB 2 spot this season. So Jermaine Carter, the free agent, is going to take it. Peyton Wilson and then Buddy Johnson to round out. Now let's take a look at the cornerback situation and see what we're going to do there. All right, so here we are taking a look at the corners. And Bradley Roby is going to be our number 1, no doubt about it. Our number 2 is going to be Ahmad Gardner, the 6'3", 206-pound corner that we just drafted. Showed out this preseason, proven to be one of the best corners in the entire draft, picked at 13th overall. So one of the best defensive backs in the entire draft. He's definitely a stud, and we're gonna rock with him as that corner too. We like his size, we like his intangibles, we like the way he plays coverage, and we also like that he's a ball hawk in a way. He had like 3 picks this season. You're gonna see the stats as well. He had 3 picks. He had a forced fumble. He had a TD. I mean, what more do you want out of a corner than that? Then we're gonna roll with Damon Arnett as that number 3. We don't know who we're gonna put inside, outside. Justin Lane had a phenomenal preseason too, so he is very close to taking a spot himself. Justin Lane was phenomenal this preseason, so it was a tough call. Bradley Roby really shuts down, top wide receivers and has the speed to keep up. Justin Lane's a little bit slower. David Arnett's a little bit slower. So is Ahmad Gardner. Not too slow, but they are a little bit slower. We like Bradley Roby's instincts. He is a veteran in the league, so he'll be our number 1. But this could definitely change. This whole defensive back group could definitely change. A lot of people are interchangeable, besides Chris Wilcox. A lot of people are interchangeable here. I mean, we could put Justin Lane in over Ahmad Gardner. We could put Gardner as our number 1. A lot of this stuff's interchangeable, in my opinion. So we'll see how the season maps out. But right now, this is what we're going to rock with. Bradley Roby, number 1, number 2, Ahmad Gardner, and number 3, Damon Arnett, and then Justin Lane to round it off. Let's take a look at the sub-positions, what we're putting at slot wide receiver, what we're putting at slot corner, just to wrap it all up. So slot wide receiver, like I said, Gary Jennings and Amari Cooper are pretty much the same player. In my opinion, just Amari Cooper is an elite version of that player. Gary Jennings will be right behind Amari Cooper in the slot wide receiver. Slot wide receiver will go to Amari Cooper. Actually, this is not the right choice. So this is going to be a live change to the position. We're going to move Chase Claypool to the slot, and the reason why is Amari Cooper has a ability. Now his ability is that when he's lined up on the outside, he has additional hot routes that he has access to. So that ability would be a waste if we did not bring him into the outside, leave him on the outside and bring somebody else on the inside. It could be Chase Claypool. It could be George Pickens. We're going to go with Chase Claypool for now. We like his athleticism a little bit. I mean, George Pickens has better... he does have better agility, so he can move a little bit better. So actually, that's what we'll do. We'll put George Pickens as that slot wide receiver, and then we'll have Gary Jennings and Vincent Smith to round it up. Now let's take a look at the slot corner to see what we're doing there. So taking a look at the slot corner, we got Ahmad Gardner as our slot corner right now, and the big reason is he moves really, really well in space, side to side, for a guy his size. For a 6'3", 206-pound corner, he's probably one of the most agile and has the quickest feet out of all our cornerbacks. Not our defensive backs, because you got Minka, you got other guys like that, but out of our cornerbacks, he probably has the quickest feet and shows the most agility out of everybody else. So we're gonna rock with him there. We like his size as well to come up and play the run. So with him in the slot, he's able to play the run really well. So that's gonna be our decision there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So just to wrap it up, the big news: Jared Goff is our number one, our starter to start the season. Amari Cooper was brought in to help out with Jared Goff, and we're gonna rock with Najee Harris. You know, the offense is gonna run through him. Hopefully the defense picks up where they left off. And yeah, that's pretty much gonna do it. Everybody have a great day, and we will see you next time with some regular season action.